Aloha. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I wanted to get a show of hands of, has anyone here surfed? Raise your hand. Okay. Doesn't feel like a lot of hands went up. But if you have, I know you know the joys of surfing and how amazing it is. And I've had the pleasure of surfing since I was basically a toddler. And so I just want to share a little bit about my life with you. And I also just want to point out how important it is for us to know that we can overcome any obstacles with Christ as our Savior and that relationship that we can have with Him. And how knowing God and living our life for Him can give us new reason and new life in Him and just direction in the different times in our lives that we go through. And I know a lot of you know a bit about my story and all that I've been through and the obstacles that I've faced. But you've only seen a small picture of my life, and it's been just an incredible journey, adventuring it with Christ. Before I gave my life to God, I started surfing when I was basically like on a board around 2-3 years old, and this was one of the greatest passions of my life, surfing. Getting to go in the ocean and just enjoy God's creation and the feeling of riding waves. There's nothing like it. You paddle in and catch this wave and stand up, and the feeling of just the ocean pulling you towards shore is just incredible. And I fell in love with that, and just thankfully I got to go out just about every day. Both my parents surfed, and my dad's from Ocean City, New Jersey, and ooh, nice, some New Jersey fans. And he started surfing when he was a teenager, and I know a lot of you are familiar with cold winters. I'm not. I love warm water and warmth. But my dad, he really loved surfing, and he'd surf all year long in New Jersey, and he'd go surf, and there'd be snow on the beach, and he'd go and put warm water down his wetsuit and paddle out and just surf until he was frozen. And eventually he made his way out to Hawaii for surfing, and that's where he met my mom. My mom's from San Diego, California. And she was a surf addict as well. She learned to surf when she was about 13 years old, and her and her sister would lug this huge wooden surfboard. They both had to carry it together because it was so huge. Nowadays, my board's like 6 pounds, really light and small. But she was just into it, and she was one of the few girls surfing, and her and her sister would go and take turns with their boards, and they just loved it as well. And eventually, my mom made her way out to Hawaii, and my parents were kind of like hippies, so they kind of roughed it and eventually met each other and basically just lived to surf. And they got married and fell in love and got married. and then had my 2 older brothers and myself and shared their passion of surfing with us. But they also shared their passion for God with us, which when I was about 5 years old, I made the best decision of my life to give my heart to God. And it's a pretty awesome combination to surf and surf for God. As I grew up surfing and just giving my life to God, it was amazing. And I just really, I loved as I grew up and started getting into competition, and I realized that I was going to become a professional surfer. It was just what I was going to do, and nothing was going to stop me. And thankfully, I had my parents' support, and they'd get me in the water every day. And some mornings my dad and I would wake up at 4 a.m. to go and surf on the other side of the island, 2-hour drive, and I'd sleep most of the way and wake up, and we'd go and surf one of our favorite surf spots. And it's just cool, like spending time with my dad and going surfing and just living my dream. And as I got older, I started getting into competition. And I was really doing well with it. I was kind of gifted and just naturally, like every heat I got in, I would end up making it or winning it. And I did my first competition, Outer Island on Oahu, and went and won every division. And these were kind of like just steps into like, okay, I'm gonna be a pro. I want to be the best girl in the world. And then as I got around 12 years old, I started doing National Scholastic Surfing Association, which is the biggest competition for amateur surfers under 18. And that summer, I think I was 13, I went and competed against 18 and unders and finished second with the whole country. So it was a big result, and I was really just stoked. But I came home, and with all the stoke I had for surfing, I knew that I still wanted God to be my number one, and I knew that surfing wasn't going to fulfill that need just for God. And so my mom and I started praying and just asking God to use me and make me more than just a surfer, and maybe take my surfing and use that. And it was just an incredible combination of surfing and surfing for God and wanting to know Him and live for Him and take these steps to just choose to live my life wholeheartedly for Him, and even with my passions. Another passion of mine besides God and surfing is my husband. He's over there hanging out. Oh, he's so cute. Yeah, he's pretty handsome. But my husband, he's awesome. So supportive. He's helping me prepare for this, and he's just awesome. But my husband loves to go on adventures. One of my favorite stories he shared with me, him and his best friend, they were, he's born and raised in Kansas, and one summer, him and his best friend, they got in their car and drove 24 hours to the Rocky Mountains in Idaho just to go on an adventure. Packed pretty light, like can of beans, sleeping bag, shotgun, some kind of axe thing. And they decided to go climb the steep mountain that they could find. Really just to be outside and go on an adventure. And they hiked the mountain, and they got about halfway up, and then it was getting darker and late, and they got ready to camp out and just slept under the stars and enjoyed the outdoors. And and then the next day they got up and climbed the rest of the mountain. And I just see that all of us have different passions and not necessarily the same. I doubt there's too many people extremely passionate for surfing in this room. Maybe you love basketball or soccer, or maybe you love art or filmmaking. But no matter what your passion is, you're going to face an obstacle in your life. The fact is, life's not perfect, and there's times where we face different things and things that we need to overcome, and that kind of bring us down. When I was 13, I was kind of on top of the world, and I was doing all that I wanted to do with surfing, and I loved God passionately, and I wanted Him to use me. And in 1 second, my arm's gone, and I felt as though surfing was gone, and it was just crazy that this happened to me, that a shark attacked me and took my arm. And it's one thing that surfers think about, but you don't actually think it's going to happen to you. And I didn't know what God had in store for me. One day I'm doing everything I hoped. Next day life's kind of come to a halt and almost lost my life. But thankfully, God had an incredible plan and journey for me. And I'm just really stoked that I chose to trust in Him through this time of loss and kind of just not fully comprehending what He had, this plan for surfing, maybe not surfing, and just what am I going to do? My arm's gone. And, people in my family kind of doubted, and my mom's like, oh, we can move to the mountains and you can snowboard or be a photographer. And but at the same time, I had a peace that God was in control. And I had that peace because I had that relationship and that intimacy with Him. And, I'd invest time in just praying and asking Him to guide me in my life. And I just loved Him. And that gave me the peace that even in this craziness and almost losing my life and losing surfing and losing my arm, I knew that He was in control and He had a plan for me. And it's just crazy how God can take crazy things and turn them into something really beautiful. Whereas my husband, when he went through his college, he went to college and he kind of went through a phase of just poor decisions. And he came to a point where, yeah, he made some really bad decisions, but don't we all? He came to a point where, he was a really successful athlete. He played football, and he's a pretty strong, buff guy, and I don't mind that. And he also, he was in track, and he's just if you get to spend time with him, he's very just lovable, and everyone who meets him, my whole family approves, and all my friends, you meet him and you just instantly love him. But yeah, he's a very successful athlete, but at the same time, he throughout college, he abused alcohol and other substances, and in that, that kind of tore him away from his loved ones and his family who was there for him and loved him and just wanted to see him have success and live his life out for God. But through these substances and these bad choices, it kind of pulled him away from the people who loved him most and people who he loved, but he felt kind of ashamed, and he felt ashamed of what his choices were. And, we all have different obstacles, and what I love about Adam's story is he came to a point where all these choices that he was making were taking him nowhere, and he felt empty inside, and he came to a point where he had to face the reality of his decisions and these decisions that were just bringing him down, and he decided to just give his life back to God and trust in God. And he came to his family and just told them that he's over these decisions he was making and that he wanted to live his life out for God. And I'm so thankful for that. And, all that he has been through, now he has this incredible ministry, and he's just so naturally gifted at speaking into young kids' lives. And that's actually what brought him into Hawaii and how we met and how we fell in love. He came out to Hawaii to be a missionary, but really to start Young Life, which is he started Young Life in Kauai with a friend, and they're reaching out to some of the roughest side of the island, you could say. I mean, every area has struggles, but he went to the west side. It's as far away as he could possibly be from me. But it was awesome. I got to experience going out there and seeing how God took these hard times in his life and eventually use them because he could relate to a lot of these kids who are making poor decisions, and he could speak into their lives the hope that God has for them, and the power that they can have in God to overcome the obstacles in their life. And yeah, it's just pretty unreal to have been able to see what he is doing and have a little part in it. But also that we got to meet, we kind of got set up on a blind date. And yeah, we fell in love. Not quite hippies, but it's been an incredible journey, just knowing that God had planned for me. And in my obstacles, beyond just losing my arm, after that I had to face so much of just looking at myself in the mirror, and I only have one arm. And that's how I am, and it's not going to change. But you know what? God loves me just as I am. And eventually he had someone special like Adam for me that would love me just as I am. And you know, that's an example of like God provided for this struggle that, I did kind of go through a phase where I was like, is anyone ever going to love me? And I'm not normal like everyone else. And, different struggles that I went through, kind of becoming famous. I never would have expected to be able to share my life through a movie and through a book, Soul Surfer, and I kind of always like to hide in the background and not be the center of attention, but I guess God had a different plan for me, and it's been pretty exciting to be able to just go out and share my story and share this obstacle that I had to face and how I overcame it, and the unique times that I've gone to places that I never would have known before. Like, I got to go to Thailand and share my story of hope with people who had a lot of obstacles after the tsunami hit, and I got to go to this village in Thailand. It's called a Sea Gypsy village. And the Sea Gypsies, their life is all about the ocean, and they fish for their living. And I got there, and I think it was about a year after the tsunami, and a lot of the people hadn't even stepped foot in the ocean. They're fearful, and they're having a hard time overcoming. So it's really just awesome to be able to share the hope in God and how he can help them overcome their fear. Got to take them surfing, and took these group of like 30 kids, took them out of their little village, which most of them had never left, drove over to the main city of Phuket, and took them surfing and gave them all soccer balls and just shared my story. And it was really awesome to see kind of the light that was brought to them, and just remind them that God loves them and he wants them to overcome. So I think I love that God can take the passions that he gives us. He took my surfing, even after losing my arm, and was able to share a story of hope with so many people. And I think that if you choose to live your life for God, he'll take your passions and turn them into even more incredible passions and adventures in him. And when obstacles come your way, or maybe you're facing something right now, and maybe your family life is rough and your parents aren't doing so good, or you are just struggling with issues. Like, we all have issues of like self-doubt, or like we can't accomplish something, or we feel just not confident in ourselves in the way we look, which a lot of us invest way too much into that. And I encourage, especially you girls, to invest in what you have in God rather than what you look like each day. And I love how, as I grew up with one arm and relearn how to surf, God just taught me a lot how he can just take the hard times that I went through and really turn them into something beautiful. And I think that he can do that for each and every one of you. He can take what you've been through and take your story, and if you're just willing to share it and share what he's done for you, if you just make an impact in one person's life, that is totally worth everything. And I look back on losing my arm, and it's actually been 10 years now since I lost my arm. And I would never take back anything that I've been through, and I wouldn't choose to keep my arm because I know that God allowed me to go through something like this to be able to come and share with you the message of hope in him, and how you can overcome obstacles with Christ. And I think that by giving your life to Christ, this relationship, this one-on-one relationship that he wants to have with you, and just fill your life with love and hope in him. And it's really amazing when we choose to live for God and love him. Loving others is so much easier, and we can just conquer anything that really comes our way. And we can ask God for help when we are facing these struggles or these obstacles, and that sometimes when we don't understand, like I'm sure when Adam got to a point of like facing the reality of his choices, and couldn't really understand why he went through that and why he pulled away from his family. But like looking at the bigger picture now, he's had this incredible ministry, and God's taken his passion for youth and taken him to a pretty cool place and an awesome adventure. And we get to spend a lot of time outdoors adventuring, and we can't always understand in the moment. And like Carrie Underwood, who played one of my best friends, Sarah Hill, in Soul Surfer, I love the scene where she's talking about a walnut, and you zoom in and it looks like a brain, and you don't really know what it is. And then you zoom out and you're like, oh, it's a walnut. And I think sometimes when our obstacles are straight up in our face, and sometimes we just can't see past them, they're just here blocking our vision. But if we just step back and ask God for help, he'll just open our vision and show us the bigger picture. And I look back now and I'm just in awe of how God can take a little young girl like me from a tiny little island in Hawaii and share my story all over the world and just be able to reach so many people. And I think even if we can all just reach one person through our obstacles and through our trials and the different things that we go through, it's just as beautiful if we reach one versus a million. And I think God just really wants you to dive into your relationship with him and allow him to drive you in your passions, so that you can work at your passions with all your heart as doing it for the Lord. And doing it for the Lord, it just, again, brings us to this reason to live and reason to go out and do things that we may never have done before, and reason to live beyond just ourselves. And the greatest commandment is to love God, love others, and love yourself. And I think starting off by just diving into your relationship with God, and then in that, he'll give you this love for other people that can't come on your own. And then from there, he'll just take your life on an amazing adventure, and no matter what comes your way, you're gonna rock it. But I just want to thank you so much, and I hope that you can take the obstacles in your life and give them to God and trust in him and allow him to carry you through that and take you on an incredible adventure and, overcome anything. Thank you.